This is PWF Empire Live.
It's the best thing going today.
The best insight and analysis on the hottest topics in the world of wrestling happens here. From storylines and news to rumors and reviews, we've got the action covered from bell to bell.
Believe that.
Presented by PWFempire.com with your hosts,
Steven,
Evan Medina, and J-Dub.
do I have everybody's attention now?
The match starts now.
It's so funny I made that intro and it gets me every time. Steven.
It still gets me too.
What?
I don't expect it.
What's up, people? Thank you for tuning in to PWF Empire Live. Jay here along with Steven, who is back from parts unknown. Now, I gotta know, did you find Undertaker and Kane's souls down there? Because I hear that they're looking for them. Like, they're missing right now.
No, they're with Bray Wyatt. Haven't you heard that?
I thought he was from parts unknown. So do they build Bray Wyatt from anywhere? I'm not even sure.
No,
Like
no, they don't.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you here. Glad to have you guys here who are tuning in now, wherever you may be watching or listening, whether it be on PWFempire.com, on YouTube, or on Blog Talk Radio. We haven't forgot about you guys. All of those folks listening to the audio broadcast of PWF Empire Live. Thank you for tuning in. We got a lot to discuss on the show tonight. Let's go ahead and run down the topics. We have everything that's going on between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, the feud for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship heading into Survivor Series. Then we have, as we mentioned, Bray Wyatt. We're going to be talking about his antics on Monday Night Raw. It has a lot of wrestling fans split into two different categories, whether it be that Bray Wyatt, that shit was absolutely ridiculous, or it was absolutely amazing. We're going to be getting down to the bottom of that tonight here on PWF Empire Live. Got the Divas #1 contender match. Paige is going to be challenging Charlotte for the championship at Survivor Series, plus a lot more of things that could possibly be happening at Survivor Series. But speaking of that, we're going to start the show off with the #1 feud that's going on in WWE right now. This is between the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, Seth Rollins, and the challenger, Roman Reigns. Now, here's the thing. I saw a lot of the comments that you guys threw at us last week, and thank you guys for commenting. We love it when you guys comment, interact with the show, whichever way that you do it. And I see that a lot of folks are feeling some type of way that I did not go out of my way to mention Seth Rollins. So I guess we have to do this like a presidential election. You know how the candidates get equal time. We got to give equal time to Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. So I'm going to start out with Seth Rollins. Steven, you have any thoughts on what you've been seeing lately with the WWE World Heavyweight Champion in his feud with Roman Reigns?
Well, before I go into that, I just wanted to tell everyone watching, I had a surgery, so if I have a lisp or jumble over my words or bite my tongue or look generally strange in the lower half of my face, that would be why. It was a jaw surgery, so it was pretty major surgery. So I apologize for that. In terms of what we've been seeing from Rollins, I haven't been seeing much different. It seems like the same old stuff from him.
Now, see, I thought it was just me. I guess not. Because I look at Seth Rollins and I see a guy who it may be a different shade of booking for Seth Rollins, but I honestly still kind of see the same person that I've
what is
grown
different
accustomed
about it?
to.
Was there something different that I missed? I didn't notice anything.
See, the thing, what I've heard was last week on the show, they say that he's grown into more of a cocky guy and he didn't back down from Roman Reigns in the final segment of the show. But the way that I saw it was, and I guess people said that I was looking too far into it to make Roman Reigns look good, and I ignored Seth Rollins maybe, but I don't think I ignored him. I acknowledged that he got punked out by Roman Reigns last week, and I mean, Seth Rollins is, I do have to say, maybe there's a slight difference in who Seth Rollins is in WWE, but I don't think that that's necessarily a compliment to how they're booking him, because if you were to ask me the honest question, what's my honest assessment of what's going on with Seth Rollins right now, I believe that WWE does have an interest in protecting him right now, but that interest only extends to the point where they're protecting him so he can be fed to Roman Reigns. That's what I see. Because they could have easily had him be defeated on Monday Night Raw with the Survivor Series match, or a traditional elimination match that was the main event of the show. It came down to two people on Roman Reigns' team, him and Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins. They could have easily defeated Seth Rollins there, but they had him intentionally get himself disqualified to get away from Reigns. I see that as not necessarily strong booking, but not booking him like a weak-ass punk that he's been for so many months during his title reign. And I have to stress the difference between booking someone strong and not booking them like a weak-ass punk. There is a difference, and I don't necessarily think Seth Rollins is being booked strongly right now.
No, he's definitely not. And in fact, if he were, I would be kind of confused, because that would have come out of nowhere and would be fairly inconsistent with the way he's been booked otherwise. So I don't expect him to be booked strong, basically ever, when it comes to this heel character. So, not really sure what people are seeing in terms of a change. I didn't notice that at all. Maybe I've been focusing too much on Reigns too, but
I know, since we brought up Roman Reigns, now I guess we gave Seth Rollins a little bit of time. Now we can talk about Roman Reigns, because this is something that you actually were, excited to talk about. You rushed to get back to PWF Empire Live so you could talk about Roman Reigns and what's been going on with him.
Well, I wouldn't say that per se, but Roman Reigns does interest me right now, and I'm not sure if it's just because I'm eager for someone to take the belt off Rollins, and I would rather it be Reigns than most people. I think I made this case before. I think whoever should take it off of Rollins should either be Roman Reigns, Ambrose, or Brock Lesnar. One of those three. And we've been through Ambrose, and looks like Lesnar's not going to be the one to do it, so I'm kind of excited for Reigns to do it. And he's been stepping up to the task. I mean, he did have kind of a corny promo, I think the other week, was it? Maybe 2 weeks ago.
Are you talking about that one that he did in Chicago?
Yeah, although I didn't mind that one. I'm not sure what other people thought of that. I don't think it was that bad.
Yeah, that was terrible. That was absolutely horrible.
I don't think it was that bad. I'm glad he addressed the crowd, is kind of what I'm saying, because it'd be worse if he just let them punk him out. I think he needs to start standing up to this bullshit. Like, don't do the John Cena thing where you're like, just cheer for whoever you want.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah, because that wouldn't work. It's not going to work for Reigns. It doesn't really work for Cena either, but that fits his persona, and I think he genuinely believes that, whereas I don't believe for a second that Roman Reigns is unaffected by the boos. When I read his interviews, he seems very fazed by it, so...
Yes. He seems really pissed off.
Yeah, so let that show on TV. I don't see the problem with that. Even if he's a babyface, that's fine. Anyway, that's kind of off topic. I think Reigns has been improving a lot, especially in terms of his match quality. In terms of his mic skills, it's kind of the same as it's been. And that generally, he's pretty good when he's not given a script, but when he is given a script, it's terrible. And by pretty good, I mean not terrible. He's serviceable, kind of like Daniel Bryan. Although Daniel Bryan is a bit better on the mic, but serviceable is fine for that character. And his match quality has been great. He had a great match with Bray Wyatt at Hell in a Cell. He had a great Fatal 4-Way showing. So I'm actually really excited for Roman Reigns, and I'm hoping he does win the title from Rollins at the next pay-per-view, Survivor Series.
Yeah, I think everything is working in an amazing... everything is going in an amazing direction for Roman Reigns right now. I think the guy is firing on all cylinders, and I'm so glad that he has a backing from creative to where they're not putting him in situations that seem unnatural to him. And the way that they are using him on TV, it seems as if this is something that Roman Reigns should say. This is something that Roman Reigns should do. And he's one of those characters that you do have to protect in that way. And when you show him off to his greatest strengths, you're going to get some good shit from him. And I believe that these last few weeks that I've seen Roman Reigns, especially starting at Hell in a Cell, the guy has been damn good. And if this run that he's on right now, if it keeps up, first let me say that. If this run keeps up and it leads him into the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, I'm all for it, 100%. And at this time, I would like to welcome Evan to the show. We're talking about Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Now, first off, I have to say, because some people felt some type of way about me not acknowledging Seth Rollins' existence last week. I think the only time I referenced him was when you brought him up. So,
yes.
Yes. So, I last week you said on the show that Seth Rollins, he has improved and his booking has changed. Do you stand by what you said then compared to this week?
Well, I feel that Rollins has been a little bit better these last couple of weeks, and I think that the way that he used a chair at the end of that main event was actually more of a tactical thing. He knew the odds were against him. He didn't just go in there and get his ass pinned. He knew that he was probably going to lose, so it looked more like a strategy to me. And maybe I could be scraping the bottom of the barrel. It might sound like that to you, but I really think that this booking has been a little bit better for him these last couple of weeks here. Again, and I will say that he has won his last 2 title matches on pay-per-view clean, which is really nice. Last 2. Mind you, not the Cena U.S. title match. I'm talking about the Sting match, and then most recently against Kane. And it's 2+2 for how easy it is that Seth Rollins should win cleanly over Kane and over Sting. I mean, that's pretty academic there. It's pretty obvious that he should win those matches clean. So he did, and I got to give WWE some props there, and therefore Seth Rollins' character is booked slightly better. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yep, that eradicates the 6+ months of bullshit that I got before that. But I am going to say that it certainly is a better sign. I guess we'll see where it goes. I'm not going to count the chickens before they hatch. It's like just because these last few weeks maybe have been a little better doesn't negate some of the bad stuff. But you also, I do think it's fair to give some credit where it is due for Seth Rollins. So it's been.
Damn, you had to use one of my sayings.
What's that? Which saying did I...
I always say, criticize when necessary, but give credit where credit is due. Now folks are going to be calling me a hypocrite because I'm not giving Seth Rollins credit.
I'm sorry, Jay. Sorry for the heat.
I don't see it. I don't see the change.
Well, Evan, what I was talking about before you joined the show tonight was that I see subtle change... Not even necessarily subtle. I see changes in Seth Rollins, but I feel as if it is a situation where WWE is basically prettying him up to send him to the slaughter, where they're booking him not as weak as he used to be to prepare him to get that ass whooped by Roman Reigns. And to make Roman Reigns look a little bit more stronger, you have to have him going against someone who isn't a terribly booked champion, as Seth Rollins has been. And now,
sure,
when I'm in that situation, it's a very weird situation because I don't want to be one of those people where I'm like, damn it, Seth Rollins, you have put me through misery for months and you've dug a hole through yourself and I'm not going to give your ass credit until you reach level ground and then start building up. I don't want to be one of those people, but I also don't want to be one of those people who give into WWE's turn on a dime booking.
Sure.
Where it's like, okay, well, this guy was something else a week ago. And then he's something completely different now, so let me just ignore everything that happened. So it's a weird situation, but
right.
I didn't even factor in all of the stuff that you were talking about with him actually winning championship matches cleanly. Looking at the big picture, maybe it was a little bit of a gradual evolution, just a little too slow for me to take full grasp of.
And I totally know what you mean. And that's basically what I was saying with I'm not going to, just say, oh, well, it eradicates everything that was so bad before. It's not like some unbelievable change. It is subtle. And more importantly than that, it is also still would be unfair of me to sit there and say that, well, those 6 months of his terrible booking doesn't matter now. Because it does matter now, and it still has an effect on what you're seeing to this day. But it certainly is nice to see a bit of a positive sign going forward. But again, it's not huge. It's not like this unbelievable change where it's like, oh yeah, Rollins is real legit now. Mm-hmm. But I'm okay with him being booked to look better, at least for Roman Reigns. Because right now, before that whole thing started, I would say, like, this whole feud, these last couple of weeks, if he didn't win those last couple title matches clean, there would be zero reason for anyone to think, in kayfabe, in storyline, that Rollins would win unless it was via a really dirty tactic or a DQ or a run-in. There's, like, at least they are trying to make him look a little more legit for Roman Reigns, which I think is good. And again, it might be small, but it's certainly an improvement. I gotta give it that. So, and honestly, Roman Reigns, I gotta throw in a couple things about him. He's performing really well. Did so again on Raw. The promo led to both guys' strengths to kick off the night this past week's Raw. I am enjoying the world title feud so far. This has been the most interested I've been in the world title in quite some time. So
I can definitely agree with that.
Yep, yeah. Definitely a good thing.
And I do want to say this, and just to take the blame off of myself and pass the buck to someone else. The problem with what's going on right now, why I think it's kind of hard for me to accept who Seth Rollins is and how he's being presented in this feud with Roman Reigns, is because of the fucking commentary team. I'm blaming it all on them because it's like the entire way throughout Seth Rollins' title reign, they've always been talking about how great he is, how awesome he is, how, oh, if he wins this match, he's going to be the greatest of all time. It's like
JBL talks about him like that.
Shit, Michael Cole just said when what was it on Night of Champions when he was like, oh, if Seth Rollins wins this match, yeah, he could be the greatest of all time. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, stop your fucking lying. Like, really, don't do that. But the thing that, here's what I'm saying. It's like, when you talk about that, through all of the bullshit that's thrown on the TV with Seth Rollins, you don't get a sense of any difference when he actually does start to be booked better. Because when he's booked like shit, oh, he's awesome, he's super, he's this, he's that, he's wonderful, he's great. Then when he starts to be booked better, he's awesome, he's super, he's great, he's this, he's that. Like, what can you say beyond that to accurately assess what's going on TV? Like, are you going to start talking about how he's, Jesus reincarnated? Like, that's the only level that you could possibly go to from that point, and they haven't gone there. So, I mean, you set yourself up for situations like this when you bullshit your way through bad booking. Next up, we are going to discuss the match that Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins were featured in on Monday Night Raw. And this was WWE's way of continuing their feud while also giving a preview to what we are going to see at Survivor Series in a traditional Survivor Series match. 5-on-5 elimination tag match. And we saw Team Roman Reigns featuring Reigns, Dean Ambrose, Ryback, and the returning Usos versus Team Seth Rollins, which had a bunch of champions on his team. They had Seth Rollins, the Intercontinental Champion Kevin Owens, and the 3 members of the New Day. A returning Xavier Woods got a hero's welcome back to Monday Night Raw. But yeah, this team faced off on Monday Night
Raw. And then he got eliminated like a bitch in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that is, I was watching, and I was about to get mad, because, I'm a big fan of Xavier Woods. Like, what the hell? Like, why did you eliminate him within the first 30 seconds of the damn match? And then I was like, wait a minute. Xavier Woods is awesome at ringside. But then, after that, I remembered that, you don't go to ringside once you get eliminated. You head to the back. So, yeah, I'm pissed off now. I went from pissed off to happy, back to pissed off. But this match, I've seen split thoughts on this. Some people saying how it was really good, and other people acknowledging that it was good, but also that it wasn't necessary. And WWE shouldn't have gone in this direction. If you're building up a show, Survivor Series, which features a traditional Survivor Series match, why would you give that same type of match away on free TV a few weeks before that show? So do you all buy or sell the decision to go with the 5-on-5 elimination tag match to main event Monday Night Raw?
I buy it purely for the fact that it was actually good, and I don't think it hurt Survivor Series that much, although I definitely felt the same way. My first thought was, why would you give away this match? But considering Reigns and Rollins aren't going to be in a Survivor Series match, at Survivor Series, a tag match, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world to give it away. So, I don't think it was that big of a deal, and I think it was a really great match, and they had some really cool moments and some great setups here. And the Usos' return was definitely cool, too. I didn't see that coming. I was almost positive it was going to be the Dudley Boys.
Yep.
So, overall, I think it was a very positive decision.
Yep, I'm in the same. For me, it not only does it help to build up the World Championship, given the finish, and Dean Ambrose's involvement is very interesting because I know that Jay will hate me for even bringing it up, but the possibility for Ambrose to get involved in some way, shape, or form, whether it be for or against Reigns at Survivor Series, there was at least a little... Yes. There was a little bit of foreshadowing there, which is always good. And then on top of that, potential foreshadowing. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it would be nice if it did. Even if it doesn't, whatever. It was cool that the 3 Shield guys were the last 3 involved here. And secondly, the Usos' return was refreshing. And if they're going to feud with the New Day, I hope, for the tag titles, I'm fine with that. However, I do think it's weird to just drop the Dudleys feud if that's the case. I'm not really sure what the direction is with that, or if it's just going to be another multi-team Big 4 pay-per-view, which seems to be the trend lately. But I digress, and yeah, it was a good quality match, so I am going to buy this. And also, you know, I know that it is, yes, a traditional Survivor Series match, and you would think that that's giving one away, but to me, it enhances the world title match that much more because you are building it around Survivor Series concepts. Like that, not only does that further the excitement for Survivor Series, it especially gets it out there to new viewers. If you're not familiar with Survivor Series and you're not, like, you know, you're a pretty new WWE fan or viewer, you'd be like, wow, that's the kind of matches we get at Survivor Series? That's interesting, because it was a really good quality matchup. So anybody who's new to the product would be interested in this too. So I'm trying to think of it from a business standpoint too. I actually think having this match on Raw was beneficial in multiple ways, and it certainly didn't give anything away, because this isn't like, it's not like we're going to get this 5-on-5 at the pay-per-view, because Reigns and Rollins are going at it 1-on-1 for the belt. So yeah, I really like what we got on Raw, so 100% buy.
I'm going to say 100% buy as well because of a few of the reasons that you all mentioned. It's not as if we're going to get this exact same match combination at Survivor Series. This was just showing people what the stipulation was all about, what the setup of the match was, and what it could possibly look like. But when you look at this specific match that was on Monday Night Raw, I see that it furthered the WWE World Heavyweight Championship feud, and I think that it could possibly spin off to a few other feuds. Because you mentioned Dean Ambrose, Evan. What I saw in the match, maybe it's because I have my blinders on for any heel turns or foreshadowing for any of that, but what I saw was Dean Ambrose pin and eliminate the Intercontinental Champion. That could put him into contention for the Intercontinental Championship. And I also saw the Usos eliminate 2 members of New Day, and that could possibly put them in line for a tag team championship match somewhere down the line, or at the very least kick off a feud between those two. And I like the fact that WWE went about things this way instead of just randomly stringing together a feud between those two and like forcing those teams into a very unnatural situation. Like everything that happened in that match on Monday, it felt natural. It felt organic. Like you look at Roman Reigns and say, okay, this guy needs partners. Of course, it's going to be Dean Ambrose. I mean, Ryback, he fits too, but you have his friggin' cousins here, the Usos, all of that stuff fits. And I like the way everything flowed in the actual match. And I think that, yeah, I could see why some people would possibly complain about it being a Survivor Series match a few weeks before the actual show. But when you look at it in totality, much more benefits come away from this match than the negative things that could possibly be perceived. So, huge buy on this main eventing Raw.
And I must say that if they are going to go with Ambrose and Owens for the IC title, I'm 100% on board for that. Like, mainly the reason why I wanted Ambrose to turn so much it's because I want something to happen with him. Because he's been in this stagnant state that has just been so, like, status quo. He's not going anywhere on the card. It's really been frustrating because I really like Dean Ambrose. He's a really solid wrestler, and a lot of people like him, so... do something with this guy. So a heel turn for me is why I'm like, that's great. It would be awesome. And plus, I still think he's going to be a better heel in the long run than babyface, but I'm okay with... I hope you're right, Steve. It's
coming eventually. And that's
okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about
Sure.
it. That's on the list to discuss. A heel turn for Dean Ambrose. The big question here is, and I want to throw this to Steven first, is that heel turn coming at Survivor Series? Because we know Roman Reigns is going to be facing off for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship at that show. So could we possibly see Dean Ambrose turning heel at Survivor Series?
No, I don't think that's going to happen. But I know he's going to turn heel. And I know that Ambrose is going to get a sort of main event heel run. I think that is very obvious and it's inevitable. I'm not that
Is it going to happen between now and WrestleMania?
It might, but I have a feeling it's going to happen in the summer. I think it'll be like a big summer program. But I expect it to happen either leading up to WrestleMania to give Reigns something to do prior to the WrestleMania match, or I expect it coming down from WrestleMania. So what I see basically happening is Reigns going into WrestleMania as champion and then coming out as champion. And I think Ambrose is going to be in there somewhere. I just don't know when it's coming. But I'm very confident that Ambrose is going to be fine. I'm not worried about him. I don't think he's another Cesaro or anything like that. I think this is a case of, well, we got Rollins in the top heel role. We got Reigns in the top face role. And pushing Ambrose would just overcomplicate things right now, so they're using him as a sympathetic babyface to rub on Reigns a little bit, which is very smart, and they might use him to put Owens over a little bit more. And the great thing about like pre-turn wrestlers is that you could job them out as much as you want, and then when they turn, they get kind of a reset on their credibility. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about because it's basically a new guy.
Yeah, it's basically a new guy. So basically they could job Ambrose out, and it's not going to hurt him if they plan on turning him heel. Especially if they do it it doesn't matter if Owens beats him. It's not going to... So I think it'd be good for Dean to put Owens over, and I don't mind him in this role right now. I'm just kind of impatient, and I get worried sometimes, although in the back of my mind I'm kind of confident that it's not going to be a big deal, that Ambrose is going to get his time. I don't know if it's going to be as big as Rollins or Reigns gets, but I do think he's going to be in the spotlight sooner or later.
Yep.
So when
definitely.
you say that they're you could job somebody out in preparation for a heel turn, does that mean that they've been building up a Dean Ambrose heel turn for like a year now?
Have they?
That was a joke. Because the guy has a terrible record on pay-per-view. But
He does, yeah. On pay-per-views he does, but if you actually look at how he's been booked, it's actually not that bad. Like the showings he basically won the world title from Rollins twice, with technicalities involved. He pinned him, I believe, and that was, I forgot what happened there. Was it reversed or what?
Something. Form of fuckery.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah,
but he did pin him clean on Raw at one point.
Yeah, he pinned him clean on Raw too, and he basically won the ladder match. Well, it was kind of a draw, but he was one of the winners of the ladder match. He beat John Cena in the pole match. He had, I think, 2 showings against Cena that were pretty strong. So Ambrose right now is decently credible, even though he's lost a lot. But yeah, I'm not worried about him. I don't think it's going to happen at Survivor Series, though. It might happen after Survivor Series, but I don't think he's going to... And by that I mean right after it might happen, but I don't think he's going to screw Reigns over or anything.
Yeah, for all of the people who are saying that Seth Rollins... that are saying that Dean Ambrose is going to turn on Roman Reigns at Survivor Series and possibly cost him the championship, I think that's a situation where it's kind of very short-sighted, because it's like Dean Ambrose turning heel that is the main objective, and not really thinking about the fallout from it or anything like that. Because let's go ahead and take into account Roman Reigns is going to be facing Seth Rollins at Survivor Series. There is no person on the planet Earth that Dean Ambrose hates more than Seth Rollins. So to cost Roman Reigns the match and the championship, which would actually benefit Seth Rollins, that wouldn't make much sense to me. But hey, you know, it is WWE, and sometimes, you know, shit happens that just frankly does not make sense. But that's one of those things that's like that's a little too far over the line for me.
I think the only way they could sell that angle like effectively would be is that there's jealousy with Dean Ambrose. Like, he wants to be the one who takes out Seth Rollins or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wants the glory for himself or something along those lines. But I do agree in terms of the fact that it would be kind of odd. It would be a little bit of a hypocrisy there for Dean Ambrose's character to actually benefit Seth Rollins, but sometimes that is how the turns work, whereas like they actually benefit their own enemy in order to get more for themselves and to eliminate somebody who they view as an obstacle, which he could view Roman Reigns as that obstacle. But they would have to actually go through and explain that, though. Like, Ambrose would have to cut a promo and say that. You know, he would have to like make it clear, because otherwise that's what you're gonna think. Like, why would he just turn on Roman? You know what I mean? Like, they actually have to follow up with that storyline. So, I mean, I'm okay with a heel turn whenever for him. I'm okay with him being involved in the IC title, and he doesn't even necessarily have. I just want him to be doing something that is a little more productive for himself, rather than being like, yay, Roman. Like, I think that piece to the character, it's not all bad, but he needs to be doing something as well on top of that. Like, he can do that, but he also needs to be like involved with the IC title, for example. That's good enough to me to at least compensate, so that way Dean Ambrose is still doing something for himself on top of that. Because if he's just cheering on Roman Reigns, it's like you're gonna forget more about Dean Ambrose. I feel that way.
I think the buddy cop version of Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns, I will say it served its purpose, like to keep them like attached at the hip to each other. I don't think that that's necessary from this point going forward. So, like, I just don't want to say, like, oh, they're fucking over, like, in the friendship, and let that be that. But, like, the part where they are linked to each other, and every time you see one, you see the other, that part, it's like, you know what, we can evolve past that. But I just want WWE to remember that those dudes are friends. So don't put them in a situation where it's like, okay, well, Dean Ambrose is out there getting the shit beat out of him by 12 people, and we're not going to acknowledge Roman Reigns' existence or even ask where he is or anything like that. But yeah, I, as a fan of Dean Ambrose, I like Dean Ambrose. I would like to see them do more with him going forward. Heel turn, no.
Well, another reason why I'm not that worried is because they did this with Reigns and Ambrose when Ambrose was in the feud with Rollins. Reigns was pretty much in the same position that Ambrose is in now, so it's kind of like, well, they did it for Reigns, so what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Is that how the saying goes?
Yeah, that's how it goes.
So I'm okay with it.
And I see Orbits in the chat saying it could be a jealousy turn. Dude just been Roman Reigns' sidekick for months. He could just get tired of losing and watching Roman win. Well, hell, Roman Reigns was his sidekick before he was his. This is just being friends. This comes along with
even Steven booking. Yeah.
Yeah, it extends to rivals and friends too. That's how it works.
Oh my god.
But here's what I'm saying. Like, Dean Ambrose turning heel on Roman Reigns, it could possibly happen in the future, and me taking the Markness out of the situation, that's very hard for me to do, just so you guys know. But me doing that, me forcing myself to not be a mark for the Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns friendship, I'd like to see that happen, but it's a very, very difficult situation, and WWE is navigating a minefield when you're talking about turning Dean Ambrose heel when Roman Reigns' opponent right now is Seth Rollins. That's the difficult part there. So it could happen in the future, but with Seth Rollins, like, he's the guy that, to me, like, puts a stop on it that says, you know, or at the very least complicates things.
Yeah, another reason why that would be a bad idea is because if you put Roman against Dean too quickly, they're going to turn on Reigns again.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to keep him
And that's
going.
another thing, too. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to keep him going up against people they don't like Rollins.
And like I don't want WWE to go with the whole sympathy route with Roman Reigns, because I feel as if at this point we've been there and we've done that. Give the guy the fucking championship. Like, I think everything is working right now for Roman Reigns, and whatever plans that you may have had, it's like, okay, we're gonna put him on to Survivor Series and we're gonna get him this close to the championship, and then we're gonna have Dean Ambrose snatch it away to start building up more sympathy. Obviously, the people like to see Roman Reigns kick ass. Let him kick some ass. Like, no need to get any more sympathy on him. Just let him go out there, kick ass. Boom. There you go. From there, we are going to move on to Roman Reigns' most recent feud companion, talking about Bray Wyatt, because Roman Reigns has moved on. Bray Wyatt has moved on as well to the Brothers of Destruction. And we saw on Monday Night Raw, Bray Wyatt came out to the ring and he cut a promo where the gist of it was that he's taken control of the souls of The Undertaker and Kane. And the promo was very... It played into like the supernatural nature of The Undertaker and Kane, and there was a lot going on. There was fire being summoned, there was thunder and lightning, and just a lot going on in that promo. Very supernatural. And with that being said, some people are saying that this is amazing. Some people are saying this is gimmicky as hell. In the year 2015, this should not be happening. The battle lines have been drawn. I want to know from Evan, Steven, and the guys who are watching, everyone, guys, gals, watching PWF Empire Live right now, what side of the battle lines do you stand on?
I think it was awesome, and I think the only thing that I have against it was the fireworks. I think that was like, why did the fireworks just happen? I got the lightning, I got the lights going out and all that, but why was there like a pay-per-view showing firework display?
That was very weird. I was looking at that like that was fucking unnecessary, because when you see like the fire and the thunder and the lightning, that's like connected to nature, even though we know it's fake. But the fireworks, like fucking fireworks,
that's
don't
their
occur
powers,
naturally.
right? The Undertaker does the lightning and Kane does the fire.
Yeah, which one of them does fireworks?
Yeah, I don't know. that might be, he might have gotten the soul of like Edge or something. But in principle, I think it was pretty awesome. The execution was almost great, except for the fireworks. But the promo itself was really good. And when it comes to like the supernatural stuff, when it's the Undertaker, I think that's the time where everyone gives it a pass mostly. Like, the Undertaker is the only one who can get away with this, and he's involved. Like, if it was just Kane, I think it would have been worse. But since the Undertaker is involved, I think it gets a pass. And Bray Wyatt is one of the few guys, maybe the only guy, who has ever been on par with Undertaker in terms of like mythology, in terms of like a competing supernatural character. Like, you've had the Boogeyman, you've had Papa Shango, you had... Who else? There's one more. You had Mordecai, I guess. There was a guy...
Gangrel.
Gangrel. Well, even Gangrel, he wasn't really even supernatural. He was just...
No, but he had like that... A little... There was something more to him than just human.
Yeah, you're right. So Gangrel too. Who was the guy who was gonna come in and take out the Undertaker on SmackDown in like 2007? But he got released promptly after. He cut like one promo. I think it was like Vance something. He cut a promo where he was implying that he and a cult were coming after Taker, which is kind of ironic. That's what Bray Wyatt is doing right now. It's actually a really good promo, and I was hyped for it at the time, but it never panned out. So yeah, Bray Wyatt's the only one who was like on par with Taker in the mythology department, so I think he is a decent successor to this kind of thing. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to last. I don't think he's going to have these powers for the rest of his career, even though I would like that to be the case. I would like the torch to be passed in terms of not being the dead man, but being just having the supernatural powers. But I think Taker's just going to get it back when he beats him. So.
See, I don't know, because when you're talking about Bray Wyatt stealing the soul of The Undertaker, shit, if he has that much power to do that, what he should have stole was the sense of nostalgia that comes along with The Undertaker, because I feel as if we accept the supernatural stuff with The Undertaker, we tolerate it with Kane, but I honestly feel as if WWE, I can't even necessarily say they crossed the line, they fucking backflipped over the line and then did the whip and nay on the other side when it came to Bray Wyatt, because it was like, I liked the content of what it was that he said, but it was a little too over the top for me when you're talking about how he's stolen their souls. And then it wasn't just like, it's going to sound weird to say this, but in the world of WWE, he said he stole their souls not as a metaphor or anything like that, but he said, like, shit, he was out there saying that he had their power and things like that, and that gets a little too crazy for me, especially in a company.
Why is that surprising, though? This has not been something new when it comes to Taker.
See, it's not necessarily about The Undertaker, it's about Bray Wyatt for me, because when I look at Bray Wyatt, as crazy as he is, and as weird and like the whole cult feeling of him, at the same time, he was still rooted in a little bit of realism, because a character like The Undertaker does not occur in real life. A cult leader, that is real. Shit, there are many cult leaders out there who have that same type of manipulation and cult of personality that Bray Wyatt is, and I wish that he would have continued down that road of like being in touch with realism rather than going headfirst into the supernaturalness, because it's not going to work for him.
It's not unprecedented for Wyatt either. He's had magical appearances in the ring.
And I haven't liked any of them.
Okay, all right.
Like, you had what was the one where he had like the fucking hologram last year at Hell in a Cell? Didn't like that. Like, yeah, I will say this isn't unprecedented for Bray Wyatt, but I haven't liked it when I've seen it.
You know, Bray Wyatt's a very interesting character, and I don't really... he is a cult leader, but he's not just a cult leader. He's sort of the... From what I gather from his backstory, he's the... what's the word I'm looking for? He's the reciprocant of a cult. He is the successor to a former leader, who was presumably the Sister Abigail. And I kind of got this from... I don't know if you saw it. It's a recent video he did on YouTube about...
The ghost stories?
Yeah, the ghost story, where he was telling me he was a little kid, and it seemed like the story is he grew up in a family who was part of a cult led by this Sister Abigail, and some sort of demonic shit is going down in this cult. Like, it's not natural. I think there are demonic undertones or overtones in this instance. It's pretty blatant, and I think he didn't create the cult. He's just carrying it on, and he's almost not the highest authority in this cult. That would be either Sister Abigail or the devil, if you want to go with the demonic route. So I honestly, I'm very intrigued by the supernatural elements of Bray Wyatt's backstory, even though it's kind of hokey. It's not unprecedented in wrestling, and I'm willing to give him a pass because he does it so well. And even if you don't like those elements, you don't have to buy into them, because there's a way to look at this from a naturalistic perspective if you want to get like philosophical. You could just say that Bray Wyatt's just being over the top, and he's just exaggerating, and he obviously just set up the fireworks, so it doesn't have...
I don't want to think that far. Like, Bray Wyatt is backstage like, okay, guys, when I do like this, you're gonna hit the fireworks, and then I want you to give like the CGI lightning. Like, I don't want to think about Bray Wyatt like that.
That's everyone in wrestling.
No, I think that it should be more like a mystic thing. Like, he was able to set off the fireworks because of his mystic power. Like, I know that maybe it does sound a little hokey when you really put it into words, but when you see it on your screen, it's actually fucking awesome. I thought that this, like, okay, first of all, this promo and everything about it was freaking amazing to me. I was loving every second of this. So obviously it's buys forever for me. But the only thing they need to steal besides the souls of the Brothers of Destruction is a win at Survivor Series. That's what I am really, really, really hoping that they do. They need
it like
to go
all falls
over.
apart if they lose.
Because all of this stuff is so awesome, and it elicits such a cool conversation for all of us. But the biggest thing is that they need to win at Survivor Series. There's no question, because none of this shit can be taken that seriously, that far. They don't have the souls of the Brothers of Destruction if they can't beat them at Survivor Series. Either way, I think that Bray Wyatt's character is awesome, and even if it is considered hokey to a certain extent, everybody loves the supernatural shit. Some of the most popular channels on YouTube are about ghost stories and like the best ghost sightings caught on camera, and like those videos and that shit gets millions of views. And the reason why I even bring that up is because like people love that shit. People love stuff that goes a little beyond the sense of what we know to be reality, because the truth is, from a philosophical standpoint, we don't really know what reality is. As much as we might like to sit there and say, I fucking know this, you don't really know. There is no true universal truth to a lot of things, and pro wrestling has always been a great medium.
Damn, this is getting deep here.
It is getting deep here, but pro wrestling has always been a great medium to take things a little beyond life. Everybody always talks about larger than life characters, and while Bray Wyatt is one of the few representatives in modern day wrestling that is larger than life, and it's like everybody wants those characters to come back. So like, I don't see where the problem would lie with Bray Wyatt. If anything, he is the standing representative of what wrestling could and potentially should be going forward. And although I do like some realistic characters, I don't mind a few that are beyond the realm of reality too. I'm not saying every character needs to be like this, but to have a couple guys on your roster that are just out there is awesome. That just makes things more diverse and makes characters more interesting. You actually know something about Bray Wyatt rather than just another standard, athlete who looks, well, he doesn't really look as athletic as many of the guys on the roster, but you get my drift. Like, most guys just look and feel the same way, not because they are that, but because they're booked that way. And Bray Wyatt is booked differently. The only problem with Bray Wyatt is the fact that he never wins a goddamn match, so the words that he's saying, the messages that he's conveying, everything that he's throwing out there doesn't feel legit because he doesn't actually do what he says. He doesn't, reap what he sows.
Yeah, I completely agree with Evan. I think that the supernatural stuff is pretty cool, especially if you could pull it off. Like, if it was a shitty guy doing this stuff, then no. But Bray Wyatt, he has this stuff on lock.
I mean, what's the definition of shitty, though? Because this guy's a fucking loser.
Why do you say he's a loser?
Because he loses!
I don't think he loses that much. If you were to tally up his wins, he wins a majority of his feuds, I'm pretty sure.
See, here's the thing. When the stakes are the highest for Bray Wyatt, he loses. I think the last feud that he actually won was Ryback and Dean Ambrose. And you look at all of Bray Wyatt's big feuds in WWE, he's lost.
He beat Daniel Bryan. He beat The Shield.
See,
but yeah, I agree that he doesn't affect anything. I don't have a problem with him winning or losing. That's not really. I think Bray Wyatt is a character who can lose because he's not supposed to be Brock Lesnar. He's not a unstoppable force. He's just in your head, and I think the real credibility from Bray Wyatt should come from him affecting the other wrestlers in a way that's lasting, which doesn't happen. So that's my main criticism of Bray Wyatt. I don't.
Based off of your own criteria for him, then he still would be a loser because who has he affected in a lasting way?
According to my criteria, he is a loser, but according to yours, he's not, because he does win quite a few matches.
Okay, so I'll go off of your criteria then.
And yeah, I'm hoping that this is the start of something new for Bray Wyatt. I want to see him. Honestly, I want to see him in the world title picture. I think that the title picture has to start revolving around Reigns, Rollins, Ambrose, and Bray Wyatt, and potentially throw some other guys in there. But those four, I think, are the main guys who should be carrying the company forward in the next year. And I really want to see Bray Wyatt get in that mix. I don't want him to just be in the mid-card anymore. I want to see him in the main event with the title at some point. And right now he has a really formidable stable. Like, the group he has is incredibly scary from a physical point of view. So I think he really does need the win. Like, you guys are right. He needs the win.
Yeah.
Like, at Survivor Series. And I think they can afford to lose. So
that is like the proverbial passing of the torch that was mentioned before. Like, I think that's like the torch being passed right there is the Wyatt family overcoming Undertaker and Kane and whoever they're with. Like, assuming it's a 4-on-4 or whatever we end up with. Like, they have to win this match. Like, it is so necessary, you know. But I love the group. I do. I love the group. I love what they've done with them a lot of the times in terms of building feuds. I mean, Bray Wyatt single-handedly built the feud with Undertaker earlier this year at WrestleMania, although he lost again, and that really didn't do anything for his momentum for most of 2015. But like they've proven time and time again that he has some depth. That, I mean, he's easily an amazingly good talker, and there is something there with that character. Like, there's substance, and that's something about Bray Wyatt's character that sticks out today in 2015, because there's so few characters that I feel relate with that. There's so few characters that actually have that extra bit of depth, and that's what makes him stick out for me, and that's what makes me enjoy whatever he has to say or do. But I have to be able to take him seriously enough, a.k.a. he needs to win. His group needs to win at Survivor Series. Like, it is must-win territory right now.
I want to go to a comment from CDLR4V1 in the chat right now. He's saying, and he's watching live on youtube.com/PWF Empire. His character isn't that unbelievable, referring to Bray Wyatt, considering Undertaker's character. I remember growing up thinking Undertaker was horrifying. If we were 10 years younger, Bray Wyatt would haunt your nightmares. I agree with every single thing that you said. Like, I remember growing up being afraid of The Undertaker too. I remember growing up being afraid of The Undertaker too. As a 26-year-old man right now, no. Like, I see The Undertaker, and here's the thing. Like, it's very hard to compare Bray Wyatt to The Undertaker, because as I said earlier on when we started discussing this, if Bray Wyatt wanted to steal something from The Undertaker, he would have stole the damn nostalgia. He would have stole the 25 years that The Undertaker has been in WWE, because that is the only reason why Undertaker's character is acceptable in WWE today, because I guarantee you, if Undertaker debuted right now, you fast forward to 25 years in the future, not happening. He would not be the legend that he is right now. He would not be the icon of the industry that he is right now.
Well,
it's just times have changed.
I think he would.
With WWE's booking, I mean, no. There's no way he would be the icon he is
Well,
today.
Undertaker is adaptable enough to, I think he would be a legend still. I think he would
I honestly do not believe so. I don't think it has anything to do with the talent that he possesses, because I think he's one of the greatest of all time. But it's just that the way that society is today and the way that the wrestling audience is, I don't believe that a character like The Undertaker could work. I can't see it. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, whether it be on YouTube in the chat, whether it be in the comments section on pwfempire.com, or on Twitter with the hashtag pwfempire. Let us know what you think about all the topics that we've discussed, including The Undertaker, Bray Wyatt, Brothers of Destruction, Wyatt family, all of that good stuff, because conversation continues on and off air. One of you guys have anything to add?
I could talk about Bray Wyatt and The Undertaker for a long time, so...
We could have an entire show dedicated to this stuff, man.
Okay, but we got a few more things to discuss before we get to that point. What do we have next? Divas #1 contender match. We saw a Fatal 4-Way on Monday Night Raw. This features Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, Brie Bella, and Paige squaring off to see who would have the opportunity to face Charlotte for the Divas Championship at Survivor Series. And the winner of that match was Paige. Now, I said I wasn't going to say this name anymore, so I'm not going to say it. The Divas division in WWE, it's had its downs. It's had some more downs. It's had some more downs. But where we stand right now, do you buy or sell that match possibly being a step into the right direction for the WWE Divas?
There's nothing to indicate that it's a step in the right direction, so I can only sell it as that. I'm sure it'll be a fine match if they give it time. If they present it as a big match, if they present it as a co-main event like they do on NXT, then maybe you have something.
Hell no. Nope. Way too early for that. See, one thing that WWE gets into trouble with is paying lip service. And that has been one of the biggest faults of this entire Diva revolution, because WWE, they say something and it isn't accurately reflected on screen. The Divas division is nowhere near. I won't buy that at all. Them talking about a co-main event, like, they're not ready. And I won't accept it until they are friggin' ready to be a co-main event. Not just by name, but by presentation, by talent, by importance, and none of those things are working for the Divas division right now. So I do not accept that at all.
Well, I don't know. It's not like the NXT Divas had a track record before they started doing it.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Like, every single match that I've seen, and for a long streak of time, the women's matches in NXT, they were progressively better than the previous match.
Yeah,
and I honestly believe.
But I'm talking about if you go all the way back to, I think it was Paige versus Emma, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
That match, it's not like going up to that match you had a whole history of great Divas matches on NXT, but even that match was hyped up on TakeOver as a big match. So that's all I'm saying, is you got to start hyping it up as a big match. Like, you got to give it the same presentation. You have to give it the same caliber of promo material, like the hype video. You have to give it a better belt, probably.
Yup.
But, because, like, look, Paige versus Charlotte on paper could be a huge match. But when you hear it right now, it just sounds like a match that you would see on Raw. If they make it feel like a big match, then I might be able to get into it. But right now, I'm not into it.
Yep. For me, see, Jay, you posed the question of, like, whether this match is actually a step in the right direction. If you take that part off of what you said, I would have bought this, because I actually enjoyed the four-way #1 contenders match, and I actually thought that tonight was, or not tonight, but this week's Raw was, there wasn't a whole lot of pistivity for me. I really didn't feel the rage this week, and I was happy, because this has been, as anybody who watches this show, you know that, like, you know, my hair is standing up, even under the hat, when the Divas division is going on.
That's why you have the hat on, just to, like, keep it down.
I gotta regulate it. It gets out of control, you know? So either way, this week's Raw was better. The four-way #1 contender, I'm like, wow, simple, straight to the point. We determine a #1 contender. Yeah, this is beautiful. Wow, let's let the women wrestle and actually do something in the ring and be allowed to get a little bit of time. This is beautiful, and we didn't get too much of the weirdness and the inconsistency. At least it looks like Paige stayed heel this week, and it actually made some sense, you know. And I was like, all right. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was definitely better, and the four-way match was solid. So if I just take this week's Raw, I'm bought. But when you say if it's a step in the right direction, I can't help but sell it. There is no part of me that thinks, even for 1 second, that this is actually going to do anything beneficial for the main roster Divas. I have no reason to believe that they're going to get featured better, that they're going to get more, you know, promotion and actually feel like they're on that same level as the as the man like they are in NXT. You know, the NXT women's division not only feeling, but being a main event, feeling like a main event even when it's not, and putting out matches that are 5-star classics, that are match of the year candidates, not just for women's wrestling, but for all of wrestling to combine. I don't think that the main roster has that time frame for them. They just don't do it up there. It just doesn't happen. Like, even if you got the same match between Sasha and Bayley that you had in NXT, the same like match on the card, it would be shorter, the quality wouldn't be as high, and they wouldn't be allowed to do what they can do out there. And that's where the main roster is truly differing. And then on top of that, you got the storylines, which are all over the goddamn place, and that's what gets me all stressed out. I get more stressed out about this mainly because I see so much potential. This is arguably the most talent the WWE's had in their women's roster ever. I think it is. I really do. I would argue that all day. This is the most talent they've had in the women's division at the same time as they've ever had in history. And yet, it's still not getting what it deserves on the main roster. Now, in NXT, it's fantastic. It's as good as you could ask for. And the only reason that I know that this division right now has so much talent is because NXT has allowed me to see that. If I only watched main roster stuff, I would never be able to even make that statement that it's a great time for women's wrestling, because I wouldn't have any idea that it is. I would say, yeah, I see some potential in so-and-so, but I wouldn't ever know that potential because I would never have seen it in front of me like I have in NXT. So is this a step in the right direction? Good Lord, no. There needs to be a lot more steps in that same direction before I'm actually going to say that there's any kind of good direction coming out of this. Maybe it is, but I have no reason to believe it. So no, sold.
Yeah, this was definitely the best match that I've seen since this stuff that is going on with the Divas started back in, what was it, July? I like the fact that they actually let them get into the ring and let them wrestle. This was the closest that I've seen Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks get to the people that I knew them as down in NXT up on the main roster since they've been there. And I thought that that was all great. I'm hoping that this is a step in the right direction, but I can't really buy it right now, so I'm going to have to sell it because I've been burned way too many times by the booking of the WWE Divas division, and I am formally an optimist. I'm not an optimist anymore. They have turned me bad, but I want to go back to what Steven was talking about. Like, what I was caught up with was like the co-main event, like that specific phrase right there, because in that situation, I feel as if that's like paying lip service to what's going on with the Divas. But if you're talking about just specifically like increasing the presentation of the Divas, making them feel as if they're more important, hell yeah, I am 100% on board with that, because that adds up to making people feel like that's basically giving people permission to pay attention to the Divas. That's giving people permission to take them seriously. So if you want to use that as a starting point and then possibly somewhere down the line move on to having them co-main event, then I'm all for that. Like, that is something that definitely needs to happen, but it's like the booking, it needs to go along with that. And I do have to say, I'm very disappointed that they didn't mention Ronda Rousey on the show at all. Like, we talked about it on PWF Empire Live last week. I actually made a solo video where I gave WWE an outline for a story that could use Ronda Rousey to really start a revolution in the Divas division, and it didn't even hinge upon Ronda Rousey ever stepping foot into a WWE ring ever again. Like, she didn't even have to wrestle a damn match in WWE, and the outline of the story was right there. And you would think that as much as the people in WWE are publicity hounds and they just jump on every fucking thing, that the best MMA fighter, or the most popular MMA fighter in the world right now, mentioning that she wants a championship in WWE, that would warrant more than a few tweets. Because that's all he got, a few fucking tweets, and that's it. Didn't even mention it on the show. Like, you had Charlotte cut a promo backstage. No mention of Ronda Rousey at all.
I was just going to mention that exact thing. Like, you have Charlotte being interviewed straight up, and she still doesn't even say a word. She could have just said, you know what? Like, she could have talked straight up about Paige, too. But still thrown in, but you know what? Another thing I want to talk about before I end this interview is that I heard what Ronda Rousey had to say about becoming Divas Champion, and after I beat Paige, the doors are open. You know, like, just say something simple like that, like, come get it. You know what I mean? That's all they had to do. Simple. You want some, come get some. Just throw on a Cena hat, and we've got Charlotte, the Cena of the Divas division. You want some, come get some.
See, the problem was she was reading a script. Oh, yeah. And she probably couldn't remember all of her lines. She was like, okay, so I'm just going to remember the stuff that I need to say about Paige because that's the match that I know is going to happen.
Yeah,
and then forgot the shit about Ronda Rousey.
And then more importantly than that, she sounded like she was kind of dejected about even having to do the interview anyway. I was like, what is wrong with her tonight? Like, get hyped. Come on, let's go. She's like, yeah,
so I got in your step.
So I got a title match coming up. Yeah. Don't really feel like doing it, but I guess I will.
Oh, God. Let Charlotte be Charlotte. Like, they're trying to push her as this this supreme babyface, and you could see every time she opens her mouth, every time she competes in the damn ring, you could see the real Charlotte fighting to try to get out. Like, the girl is not meant to be some, like, cookie cutter baby face. Every time you see her and she's naturally Charlotte, it's not necessarily that she's a heel. Going back to what Steven was talking about, she is just a fucking person who is confident in her abilities, and she doesn't fall on one side of the spectrum or the other. She's like, damn it, I was born to do this. You are a peasant. I'm genetically better than you are. And if you want to cheer me because I'm fucking awesome, fine. If you want to boo me, then fuck you. That's the type of person that she is. And why can't she be that?
I know. And see, that's the thing. Like, there's her, and the same can be said for Becky Lynch, who's, like, she's entertaining and fun in NXT, and on the main roster, she just comes off as, like, the cheese factory.
Corny as hell.
She is the cheese factory. Like, this is terrible. She is saying the most corny things. Like, I mean, she's literally sitting there like, did I really just say that? Like, did I really just say that in front of everyone? And it's being said on national television, and people are supposed to take me seriously at all. I mean, I know she was always had a flair for the fun and the fun side of the coin, but that's okay. But this isn't the fun side of the coin. This is the why are you acting like a 3-year-old side of the coin? You know, that it just doesn't make any sense. Again, taking a character that was fun in NXT and just draining it of the fun parts on the main roster.
Kyler is saying you're all acting like Ronda Rousey's actually coming to WWE. She doesn't have to. She does not have to. Like, if you guys haven't checked it out, check out my column, and I also have a video, the Rousey Revolution, Rebuilding WWE's Divas Division. Check it out. Like, they can build the revolution around her whether she is there or not. And, you know, if I do say so myself, you know, some good shit in there. So make sure you guys check that out. Speaking of videos, all of us recently watched a video which was uploaded by the What Culture channel on YouTube, and the title of the video is Adam's Pipe Bomb #2, TV PG versus TV 14. And basically the message that was being communicated in this video was that the reaction to, like, the backlash to WWE being PG, it's completely overblown, and they take us on a little bit of a history lesson and discuss things that relate to the past and what WWE was compared to what it is now. Now, this is a topic that we rarely discuss on PWF Empire Live, the PG rating, because to be completely honest, I use this as a little bit of a litmus test to weed out the crazies, or maybe the people who don't like, because I like people who think. Like, as you can see, just from this episode of PWF Empire Live, we are very analytical when it comes to WWE storylines and characters and just the overall aspects of the business, and we like to delve deep into those. And I think that the whole PG thing, without moving past the surface, you know, it's kind of shallow. And that's something I've been saying on years for YouTube, but I saw this video and I'm like, damn it, I agree with this guy so much that I'm going to start speaking in a British accent Like, that's how much I agree with everything that was said in this video. But I want to talk about this right now with you guys, just because we've never talked about it before, like the content rating for WWE and how much it really affects the product that we see on screen.
Well, in terms of PG versus TV-14, I do think it's kind of crazy to want to go back to TV-14. And I don't think it's crazy in principle. I don't think the TV-14 rating is crazy per se, but the things that people sometimes expect are kind of crazy for the time period. You know, we can't have the stuff that we used to have in the Attitude Era. And not only can't we have it, but I think if we did have it, we wouldn't want it, because I remember when WWE was still TV-14 back in like 2006 to 2008, they were trying to be the Attitude Era, and it was still shit. In fact, it was worse then than it is now, a lot worse. So I don't think that the rating really corresponds to the quality of the show at all. I don't mind that people want blood. I completely understand that, especially when it's in the right context. I think the Hell in a Cell match between Brock and Taker was made so much better because they were both bleeding. Just because it's ridiculous that you could fight to that degree and not get busted open. Like, the human body is not that resilient. You're gonna have some blood when you fight. In fact, it's a surprise that people aren't busted open every match, considering they're punching each other in the face so often. So, I get that aspect of it. I don't think it's bad to have blood here and there. In fact, I don't even think blading is that bad here and there. But the type of over-the-top violence and coarse language that people want back, I think would be completely out of place. It would be very cheesy. It would be very forced. You know, imagine trying to do that stuff with the current commentary team. Like, do you really think that Michael Cole and JBL could put over that type of violence? You know, you wouldn't have JR screaming, he's been broken in half. You would have JBL saying, oh, here comes the toys, Michael. He's going to bust them open. You know,
and then you would have Michael Cole sitting there, oh my God, he just busted his head wide open. This is amazing.
This is hard to watch. This is the most disturbing thing I've ever seen. Just like put on their Owen Hart voices, and it wouldn't be the appropriate level of reaction. It just wouldn't fly. And one thing that I really liked that he said in that video was that they have to be willing to get rid of these old gimmicks. You know, you can't have the Hell in a Cell match if you're not going to have blood. Like, you pick one or the other. And I do think you could have both during PG, but you really do have to pick one or the other, or at least you have them very rarely. Like, stop trying to have all these gimmick hardcore matches when you can go all the way with them. Because there are other gimmicks and other ideas that you can go with to actually play up to the rating that you have now, which is what the video suggested. And he cited NXT as an example, which I think is right. I think NXT is the way PG wrestling should really be, because we all love it. It's just a more pure, more honest, more legitimate brand of pro wrestling for the time period. And you don't have to rely on gimmicks or blood or violence. You just have pretty straightforward storylines, and it's not over the top. It's just it's just legit feeling without being too boring. You know, you rarely get a gimmick match, but you still feel the brutality involved when Kevin Owens powerbombed Sami Zayn onto the ring, you know.
Now, I have a question for you based off of that, because we've actually talked about this off air, and maybe my opinion has changed since then, but I know there are a lot of people out there, the powers that be in WWE in particular, who believe that NXT is for a niche audience, and for some reason or another, it would not work on a large scale in the way that a show like Monday Night Raw does. And it's so funny because this point was actually brought up in the video, like, is Monday Night Raw even working at all. So, I mean, like,
It's not working.
I honestly do sit back and I say, who the fuck is enjoying this? Like, from start to finish, like every episode of Monday Night Raw, I get some form or fashion of enjoyment out of it, and it's enough to sustain me as a wrestling fan and keep me hanging on from point to point. But it's been a very long time since I've sat back and said, that's an awesome episode of Monday Night Raw, because it was good from start to finish. Like, and I do wonder, for all of these casuals that WWE is attempting to attract to the product, like, how is it working for them? But going back to my question, like, I'm quite sure you don't believe that NXT is for a niche audience. I just want to know, why do you think other people think that way?
I think that, in general, when the pure fans enjoy a product, then the casual fans will too. Because it's not just wrestling, for anything in particular. I mean, there are some things that you need a really sophisticated taste to understand. Like, there are some movies that only movie critics like. But in general, I think that as long as you appeal to the people with the highest standards, then you will satisfy the people with the lowest standards just by logical necessity, right? Mm-hmm. So, I do think NXT is a niche show. I'm not saying you put NXT on the main roster and you make it the same thing. Would it work? It's 1 hour show. The talent is not. You don't need to worry about them too much because there's no like John Cena level stars on there. You could kind of play around. But I do think the principles behind NXT could be applied to the main show and do successfully. So I don't see a problem with that. And at least we don't know, first of all, because we haven't tried it. I don't see why we can't try it. Like the guy said in the video, and like you just said, Raw's not working right now anyway, so the ratings are going down every week, it seems. So, you might as well try something new, or at least try it on SmackDown. Give SmackDown to Triple H. See what he does. See how it goes.
Yeah, I've never been under the umbrella that TV rating has everything to do with whether or not professional wrestling is actually good. You can kind of go back to when WWF hit its first boom period in the 1980s. It was PG. It didn't turn 14 until the Attitude Era. It was TV PG.
Can I just point out, sometime into the Attitude Era, because the beginning of the Attitude Era was actually PG. Like, a lot of folks don't know this. And what's so funny, I bring this story up every time. Like, it was a segment where I forget the specific segment, but it was Stone Cold Steve Austin. He kicked off Monday Night Raw. He was out there raising hell and just doing what Stone Cold does. And I saw this on YouTube, and there was a person in the comments, and they were like, oh yeah, this was awesome. This isn't like that PG bullshit that we see on WWE TV today. Funny enough, I look up in the upper left corner of the video, big ass PG rating right there. Yep. The show is actually rated PG, but it's just that, like, those blinders were on, and this was awesome, so it had to be TV 14, and this was PG, so it had to suck.
It is such a
fair. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's such a misconception that TV 14 defines greatness, because I see it all the time. I still see it all the time on discussion boards, on Facebook threads, YouTube comments, wherever you want to look. They still say that if it wasn't for the PG era, things would be great. And I sit there and I'm like, it is not because the show is rated PG that it isn't good. There are a lot of other factors involved, and a lot of them have to do with the booking. A lot of them have to do with the lack of interesting characters, a lack of sensical storytelling. I mean, those are three things right there that are way bigger pieces of evidence for why WWE's product hasn't been as good for the last number of years over the fact that it's rated TV PG, because there have been great moments within the PG era. Even though this isn't the first time that WWE's been PG. I mean, people are so ill-informed that they think that it was always TV 14 until 2008, but it was PG actually for the majority of the time it's been on television, except for the Attitude Era.
Majority time of its fucking existence,
Yes.
to be quite honest.
Exactly. So it is proof that a PG rating has nothing to do with whether or not the show is awesome or not. Now, the Attitude Era was a great time for pro wrestling. There's no question in my mind about that. But it isn't that way in 2015. It has been there, done that. It is over with. That was then, and this is now. This is a time for different things to happen. And that's what makes wrestling interesting, is that you can't have the same shit for too long. It has to evolve. It's like any other industry. Things have to evolve and change. You can't have the same exact, oh, well, he's going to hit him with a chair. Oh, well, there's blood on every episode. Oh, we want to see titties. I mean, that is not the only thing that WWE should be about. And I'm not saying that seeing boobies and ass and the way that women were featured at that point was a completely bad thing, but I'm certainly a little more excited to see the women actually wrestling this time around.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad thing. That's how Deborah won the women's championship. Definitely wasn't bad for her.
So
it's awkward too, because like if you want to see hot girls, you just go on the internet. Like you don't watch wrestling to get off, basically. You just don't.
Some folks, do you know that there are some people out there who actually complain about, like, I don't even know what to call them, like stockings or pantyhose or whatever they are. Like, do you know people complain that the divas wear those?
Who complains
that
about
they don't? That a lot of people. You'd be surprised. You honestly would be surprised.
I am surprised because that's ridiculous. but you know what? You know what, Jay? In another way, I'm not surprised because people find a way to complain about every goddamn thing. But anyway, I think Adam from What Culture is really, really intelligent guy. He has some great videos out there, and this was one of his best, in my opinion, because he touches on a subject that is so often debated and so often talked about, but yet puts it into perspective. He really sets the way that it should be articulated, because the truth of the matter is it is a huge misconception for it to be believed that a PG rating on the show has everything to do with why it's not as good. Like I think of films before there was the PG-13 rating in movies. Like the original Jaws film was rated PG, and if you go back and watch that film and you think about it, and you see what you see on that film, you're saying to yourself, how is this rated PG? How is this not rated R? And you think of even like the original Star Wars movies, and I understand that that's more fantasy violence than anything else, but there's still violence nonetheless, and you would think that in a modern scope that would have a higher rating, and it didn't. It was rated. Those were rated PG because they didn't have PG-13 back then. So PG is supposed to mean parental guidance. That's what it stands for. Let's be freaking real for a minute here. So, for young kids, they should they should have a parent watching with them, so that way they can explain any of the abstract concepts that might be going on the show. But yet,
what a job that would be.
What's
Mommy,
that?
Daddy, why was he in a suit and then he went and put on a mask? Can you explain? Could you see a parent explaining to their child that?
Well, I mean, more or less
anything that goes on in the story.
Yeah. I mean,
like, Mommy, why does that lady hold the championship belt when she loses all of her matches? Why does that guy never win? Fair and square. God, what a fucking job that is.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, but basically what I'm saying is that, like, if there's anything that's really out there, then the parent could switch the channel or whatever for a young kid. And we're talking, like, kids who were under, like, elementary school age, because come on, I know from my own experience that, like, once I was in, like, 2nd, 3rd grade, I didn't give a damn about anything. Like, I watched the show and I enjoyed it, it didn't matter to me. And those kids now aren't going to think any differently. They're not going to sit there and cry because there's a scantily clad woman on the TV. They don't know any better. They're not going to. The only people who are going to throw a fit are the politically correct people out there who just can't handle anything that's abstract, and there's a lot less abstract stuff. That's why it is PG. And yeah, I understand that when it was TV-14 there was some more awesome stuff when it came to that, but it's okay with me that that's a little more rare now, and that it's more focused on the wrestling. I think Steven put it as pure. It is more pure now, and I think that that's good. It's more true to the W. It's more true to the wrestling in that way. However,
I Ironically, right?
Yeah, very ironically, because at times it's been so weird. It's almost like all they ever do is cut promos, and we've complained in the past that there's not enough wrestling. Well, now there's too much wrestling at times on the show, to a point where there's a bunch of matches that actually are pretty damn good, but the reason why you can't stay into them and why people don't continue to watch is because there's no investment. There's no reason to get behind those matches. So it's like...
stakes.
There's nothing on the line.
It's
it's
objectively too much. I don't understand how they could possibly look at 3 hours of Raw. Do they still do main event? An hour main event? 2 hours of SmackDown.
Superstars.
They don't still do Superstars, do they?
Yep.
There's no way.
It just got canceled by WGN because they were like, "Oh, this shit is too much." Like
this is too much wrestling. Even if all of it was great, it would still be too much. Like, there's a point where it's just too much. Like, if Breaking Bad went on for 10 seasons, I would probably have stopped watching it by now, even if it's still great. There's just a point where it's like, okay, that's enough. You gotta know when, like, the proper dose to give your audience, and what they have now is objectively too much.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, some of the things that you would see in TV14 WWE were maybe, or WWF as well, maybe were, a lot more than what you see now, but it's proof that, like, you can still have some blood, you can still have some extra violence at times. It's just not as common of an occurrence as it used to be. It's funny because, I'm not sure if TNA is still TV14, but they were for a long time, and in recent years, they still have been, and honestly, they have no reason to be TV14. There's nothing on their show that really tells me, oh, this is too much for PG. Like, I mean, their knockouts, are their
Brooke
knockouts.
Tessmacher's entrance. No, Velvet Sky's entrance. That's it.
Right.
That's where it is. That's where the TV14.
That one thing is the TV14 rating. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let the pigeons loose is the one reason, and then that guy's not even with the company anymore. So there you go. I mean, that was probably the most potentially weird thing to say that could have made parents freak out, if anything. But more or less, you look at the Bellas entrance, they shake their asses on the way to the ring too. I mean, for crying out loud, it's not like the Divas and wrestling and WWE are any different in some ways. I mean, yeah, there's more of a focus on wrestling now than before, but in recent years, it's pretty much been the same thing. Look at Summer Rae. She's basically whoring her way around to get what she wants right now. That's a pretty TV14 thing, isn't it? No, it's not that bad. That's the thing. It honestly doesn't fucking matter that much. Unless it was to a bigger level, that was just unacceptable for PG TV. Again, PG is parental guidance. It's supposed to be under the umbrella of parents are watching over their kids, the young kids, when they watch this. They know that some of the concepts could be over the line for what they want their kids to watch. But anybody who's over the age of 10 is not going to give a damn, or is going to be plenty old enough to see whatever WWE puts out. So again, their product, they're not doing anything that's too much. They don't need to in order to have entertaining television. I think that's honestly when the Attitude Era was, what made the Attitude Era so awesome was that they were able to do all those things. But that time has passed. It is not like that anymore. That's not the trend today. That's not necessarily what everyone needs to see. I think if the Attitude Era came back, it wouldn't save wrestling. It would not save wrestling for the Attitude Era to be, because it would just be a copy of what we have already seen. We've been down that path. Then you are going to expect more and more and more. And then when the next tragedy happens, somebody's, gets a major concussion and their career ends as a result, or something bad happens. I don't really want to allude too much to the Benoit tragedy, but I again, do you want those types of things to continue to happen, or do you want the wrestlers to be a little more safe, a little more better off? They already beat their bodies up enough as it is 300 days a year on the road. I mean, how much more punishment do they really need to put themselves through for the entertainment when you can have matches like John Cena versus Kevin Owens where they didn't even leave the ring, and yet they were still one of the best matches of the day, one of the best matches of the year. So there's no reason why wrestling has to always be violent. Although, I won't say violent. It's always going to have a violent nature. But you get my gist when it comes to the extreme violence, the chairs and the tables and everything. That doesn't have to be involved all the time. Now and then, it's refreshing. It's cool to see. It's a concept that we love from the past, but it doesn't have to be a constant as it was during that era. So it's not necessary for things to be TV-14. And secondly, WWE can still do some extreme things and get away with it just fine, because they did before and they still do. They still have Hell in a Cell matches. It's not like they banned chairs and tables from being a part of their product. They still have that. It's just not featured every week, and you're not seeing Bubba Ray throw Trish Stratus through tables like he used to, or Mae Young. Even though that was cool and entertaining at the time, it doesn't have to be around today.
And one point that I do have to throw out there to and on a positive note for this generation of wrestling, and this is something that Adam mentioned in the video. He said that somehow, some way, WWE has found a way to make the wrestling safer, while at the very same time making the match quality better. And that is not something that we should just throw to the side. I think that's something that should be screamed from the friggin' rooftops. Now, it's not to say that the business is 100% completely safe and no one will ever get injured from this point on, but as the old saying goes, it ain't ballet. Some people will get hurt, but the level of injury, and I hope, we can't tell right now, but I hope when it comes to the long-term injuries that are suffered, we don't see people in 10, 15, 20 years like we see some of the veterans of the business today walking around as shells of their former self. I hope some of the changes that have been made in the industry, it allows them to live better lives when they finally hang up the boots whenever they decide to.
Again, it's one of those things where you can't completely eliminate. You're never going to 100% eliminate any type of injury. It's pro wrestling. You can't just fully get rid of that. That's okay. But to eliminate some of the long-term injuries, or ones that are going to actually take away from someone's ability to live going forward, that's key. That's huge. And honestly, this is a great time for wrestling. It's the booking, the lack of storytelling, the lack of interesting characters, the lack of emotional investment. Those are the reasons why wrestling is struggling. Those are the reasons why the ratings are down.
WWE.
Yes.
WWE.
Oh, yes. But I mean, no other company is on that same plateau. Like the great CM Punk once said, I know you don't like CM Punk, Jay, but I have to quote him here when he said that...
Just throw me under the bus, man. We have a lot of new viewers that don't know that.
Jay's a Punk hater.
I am not a Punk hater. I have nothing but his best interests at heart.
I'd love to believe what you just said, but I don't. Okay, anyway, what Punk said back actually when he did his interview with, I believe it was Colt Cabana, was it's the only show in town, to get to the damn point. It is. It's the only show in town. So, when I say wrestling struggling, if WWE's struggling, everything else goes along with it, because when people look at the standard of pro wrestling, they look to WWE. That is the standard bearer of wrestling, whether anybody likes it or not. And I hate that that's the way it is, because Lucha Underground's awesome, NXT, a subdivision of WWE, is awesome, and ROH still has some good matches and things like that. Even if their TV show is hard to follow sometimes, they still have good quality wrestling. There's great stuff out there all over the independent scene, and it's hard to have encouragement to newer fans, or fans who may have gone away from wrestling for a little bit and are now coming back. They're going to come back to it and say, man, this is why I stayed away from it. This is why I fell away from it in the first place. And they're not going to be encouraged to go to indie shows unless they're really into the business. And that's just stupid. But WWE is that standard bearer, and if they're not putting out a top-notch product, it's going to have an effect on everybody else, even if it's only minimal. Those other programs and those other companies aren't going to have that type of interest unless they are able to get an outreach similar to WWE. So it's a very monopolized type of thing right now. You have WWE up here, and everybody else is just barely above water, and that sucks. I really want to see a company break out, and I think I truly believe it can happen someday, and I think it very well may. If WWE continues on this trend, somebody's going to step up, and some company in the next 10 years is going to emerge, and there will be legit threat for WWE. And that company may not even exist right now. That's the crazy part.
You know, this is a topic that I really would like to explore on a future show, because there's a lot there that you said that I actually disagree with, that I want to have a discussion on, but I think that we need to table that for the time being, because this show, we've talked about a lot of stuff, got deep on PWF Empire Live, because we love to do that, and we hope that you guys love watching and joining in and interacting with us. Now, I do have to say that I was going to go into the swerve, but we're going to go ahead and table that as well. And Steven, I was going to turn heel on you for push repackage release, for saying that you were going to fire Xavier Woods, but we will talk about that on
you're
next
gonna
week's show.
fire Big E. You're going to fire the one guy in that group who has main event potential.
You know what? We're going to save this for next week. Everybody, Jay versus Steven next week on PWF Empire Live. Be here, pwfempire.com. So until then, thank you all for tuning in. We will catch you on the flip side. Peace out.